Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Creepy stuff going on in our house. Any ideas, please share. Also share your creepy stories. For right now, I'm just gonna share what's been going on in my house, though I've got more stories beyond the house. Okay, so first off, our house was built in the 60s. Sometime in the late 70s, early 80s, a woman was murdered in the house. I used to be freaked out about it as a kid, mildly, but quickly got over it. Recently, my uncle was visiting us from out of state, and my dad wanted to get him a room set up. My dad and I sleep downstairs, and his girlfriend sleeps upstairs in the living room with her elderly mom and brother. There are 3 unused rooms upstairs. My dad and his girlfriend were cleaning this room out for my uncle, and it got late. Still a few days before he arrived, so they were chilling downstairs. My dad's on his computer. His girlfriend is watching TV with her headphones in. They both start hearing lots of really loud banging going on upstairs, from where the room is, like stuff is violently being moved around and slammed into stuff. This goes on for legitimately like 10 minutes. Eventually, they investigate, since they found my dog in my room, and the cat has been downstairs with them the whole time. Nothing out of place, nothing broken, noises stopped. When they returned downstairs, the noises continued for another few minutes, not as long as before. They were kind of freaked out. The next day, they were cleaning the room some more, and my dad came across this 3 or 4 foot creepy as shit doll. He says, "Oh no, these things are not staying in here with my brother," and proceeds to move the doll to another room. As he does this, his girlfriend starts freaking out, saying, "Stop, you can't do that to her, that's not fair." He says hell no and puts the doll in the other room anyway, and puts a Bible in the room. That's the last thing that happened about the situation. It was just really creepy to begin with, but his girlfriend made it extra creepy by trying to defend the doll. By the way, the visit went well with nothing to speak of until my uncle left. Now this isn't nearly as bad, but it just happened last night. I'm sitting at the table downstairs talking to my dad while he's on the computer. I'm looking at my cat, which is staring out the screen door. Between me, my dad, and the cat is a couch, and on the end there's a little table we usually keep like a 24-pack of water bottles. As I'm talking to my dad, looking at the cat, out of nowhere this packet of water bottle just falls to the floor. Not violently thrown or anything. It just casually slid off the little table. I know it wasn't the cat, because like I said, I'm watching the cat and it's not moving. Just out of nowhere, the water bottle slid off. We thought it was weird and talked about it for a minute, but weren't scared and just kept talking about whatever we were talking about. Same day, his girlfriend gets home with groceries. We have a full kitchen upstairs and downstairs, so we stock both, because my dad and I kinda live downstairs and his girlfriend, brother, and mom live upstairs. It's really like 2 houses that share a laundry room downstairs. I put food away and smoke a cigarette. I then go to the kitchen to wash some dishes, and this loaf of bread I just put down like 5 minutes earlier gets brushed off and hits me as I'm walking by it. Again, I go tell my dad, put it back, and wash dishes. It's really weird, but it just doesn't scare us. Nothing really happened since so far, but it's only been a day.
Well, you see in some places that moving shit from a place can make a spirit go into a state of unrest, and it seems that this could happen with you. Did you ever previously go into the room and move things, or was this the first time?
We've lived in this house for years. Everything in all these rooms has been moved around loads of times. When I was younger, we all used to sleep on the waterbed in that room, which I now have in my room. It's just been turned into more of a storage room about 4 or 5 months ago. Thing is, my dad's girlfriend is borderline mentally disabled. She takes care of her mom and brother, and in return she uses their money for stupid shopping trips. She's always going to auctions and buying stupid, useless nonsense. Of course, she always grabs a bunch of dolls when she can. That's the only thing I can really think of, it being the doll. We've had little occurrences in this house for years, but nothing major. We've always known there was a spirit here, but it hasn't really messed with us too much. Aside from the lady murdered here years ago, there was another older gentleman who died here. He didn't live here, or even know anybody in the house for all I know. We have a channel in the backyard that feeds into a bigger river, and he was doing something in the backyard by the water and had a heart attack. Like I said though, we haven't had too much weird shit happen. Not to say nothing happened, but that incident with the banging shit around is by far the most extreme.
So years ago, me and a few friends used to go to an old house that one of us grew up in and had spooky goings-ons. We would sit around and the normal spooky shit would happen. Random cold spots, old lady perfume would waft through. We would hear footsteps in the room next to us, and when we opened the door, nothing was there, etc. The house had an old well that we would dare each other to walk out to alone and look down, and sometimes you could hear things down there. There was also an old shed with a massive beehive built on the back of the door. Story goes that the shed was where the daughter of the original owners would be locked up if she did something bad. One of the last times we went there, the door to the shed was lying about 5 to 7 feet away, with large dents and splintering on the inside side of the door, with wood still attached to the hinges of the doorway. Looked like something had burst its way out of the shed. Crazy thing was, the beehive was still in the doorway covering the whole thing and with no damage to it at all. There was also something one of the guys used to say he saw that hid in the trees and had that predator-style cloaking going on. I never saw it at the house, so I pretty much assumed he was making it up. Fast forward a few years and we stopped being able to go to the house. They first put up a chain to keep cars out, then started calling the cops when they would see someone pull up. A bit after that, we had a hurricane make it much farther than normal inland where I live, and I spent too much time visiting with my mom, who lived near the old house, to beat the rain home. Never having been in a hurricane, central Alabama here, I thought it would just be a rainstorm and I could drive through it. First warning should have been, there was no one else around. This was a backwoods kind of place, but there were always coal trucks and stuff like that running the roads for the nearby power plant. At first it was just heavy rain, but the sky was still clear enough you could see around you. I drove a bit till I made it to a stretch of road overlooked by a big hill with high voltage power lines on top, so it was pretty clean. Lightning started to pick up, and at first I didn't notice anything odd, but after a few strikes, I saw white blobs on the hill for a fraction of a second after the strike. Interested, I slowed down my shitty Kia SUV, and the next lightning strike I made sure to look where I saw the white things. Right after the lightning, I could make out human-like figures standing on the hill under the power lines. The guy had said that the things in the trees never bothered you as long as you didn't look at them, which I always thought was a way to get us to keep our heads down and spooked walking to the house. Either what he said was true or they just saw the one dumbass stupid enough to be out in this weather. The things on the hill started to move to the road. I have no clue how fast they were or how many, as I could only see them during the lightning flashes, and then only for a second. Around that time, the rain really picked up, and I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead of my headlights. The road was one of those shitty county roads with no guardrails and little shoulder to pull off on, so I eventually had to hit my hazards and pretty much stop in the road. I'm starting to freak out a bit, and it just gets worse when I start to see the things outside my car, around 10 or 15 feet or so. I could still see them with the lightning, and up close they turned a paper white color during it, then faded away quickly. I could also kind of see them in the rain by where it would hit them, although they moved around so much I couldn't really see how many there were, but they seemed to be going faster or getting more numerous. I sat there for a minute or so, wondering what was happening, then decided that if I could see the reflectors in the center of the road, I could follow it and probably not run off the road. I figured that anyone else on the road would be going just as slow as me, and a slow speed fender bender would be better than whatever the things were going to do eventually. I creeped along the center of the road with my eyes glued to the reflectors until I made it to an overpass where a few other cars were waiting out the rain. I pulled under and kept looking, but I didn't see another one of those things. I told one of the friends that used to go to the house with me about it, and he said that he used to see them at our local park at night, but they always stayed away. Anyone else seen anything like these things? I always wondered why they were out in the rain like that, or why they were apparently just chilling under the power lines till I showed up. Oh, and the first image was kind of like how they looked in the rain, but not nearly as detailed as that picture. But the only other image I found similar was from that stupid Hollow Man movie from a few years back.
Anybody know the significance of 3 taps on your window? This happened last night. I live with my mom and sister who are currently on vacation in another country, especially visiting my mom's native town in Mexico. As much as I'd like to go with them, I stayed to watch the house and feed the animals. I have a single cat that has been with me for 8 years, and my sister has 2 dogs, a kitten, and some guinea pigs. Of course, my job doesn't make it easier to go on vacation anyway, so this was an opportunity to have the house to myself and relax. I began taking the dogs out for walks when I was available, usually between 9:30 p.m., coming back before 10:30 p.m. It's hot where I live, plus the youngest dog becomes incredibly hyper with the sight of other dogs. Truth be told, I like being by myself, and this routine ensures I hardly encounter other people in my walking path. This happened before the knocking, but I feel it is significant to mention I was at home a couple days ago on my day off. The dogs began coming up to me because I put on my shoes, and they knew that was okay for a walk or for me to leave. It was 9:30 p.m., and I was going to take them for a walk. I turned on the outside lights, then walked back into the kitchen that is near the front door of the house. I had my laptop set up on the kitchen table where I was watching a Brazilian movie called Elite Squad. I recommend this movie because I was hooked, so hooked, in fact, that I stayed rooted to the kitchen chair. Time passed, and I forgot about the dogs and their walk. At 10:15, I heard the doorknob rattle in a way that indicated someone twisted it to open it. The dogs immediately began barking and ran to the door, furiously barking. The door was locked, but I was able to see the doorknob from where I was sitting. I jumped up and ran to my backyard. I could hear the dogs barking rather aggressively. I ran around my house as fast as I could and peered over my fence, which showed the street. In my mind, someone was attempting to break into my house. I live in a cul-de-sac neighborhood, so there is only one direction for someone to leave. There were no cars leaving, and I stayed alert for the sound of running footsteps to indicate someone running away. I opened the gate and walked in front of the house. The dogs were still barking. I cautiously walked up to my door, ready to run to a neighbor's house if I saw anybody. I did not want to be trapped in my house. At this point, adrenaline was pumping, and I swear the door was slightly ajar as I approached it, but thankfully it wasn't. The light from inside was escaping through the side cracks of the door. I made one last check around the front door area, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. I returned through where I came from and let my dogs out to the backyard. In my mind, it was still possible someone could be in the backyard if they jumped on the other side of the fence. The dogs ran out, and I knew they would sniff someone out or show me signs there was someone around. But no, they returned to normal after that. We all went inside, where I returned to finish the movie, but I was completely engulfed in my own thoughts. I ran the possibilities and concluded if someone did try to open my door, they heard the dogs and ran. And this caused me to become even more paranoid because I would have been out for a walk. Was my house being staked out? Now, last night was the most disturbing night I've ever had. There isn't much detail besides the fact that I was awake. My bed is placed where my window is, so when I sleep, the window is directly behind me. Even though it is hot, I did not open my window that night because the air conditioner was on. I rarely turn on the AC out of my own accord. One of my sister's dogs was sleeping at my feet, where my cat usually sleeps, but my cat was on the floor. The other dog was in the living room. I was awakened by 3 solitary taps. Directly behind me on the window, as if done by the tip of a finger. I was absolutely paralyzed. I felt like I was in that state where people say they can't move after waking up from a nightmare. I forced my right leg to move, and I looked at my dog near my feet, and he was completely asleep, not even noticing my sudden shift in posture. I scanned the floor to see if my cat was up, but couldn't find her, so I took a deep breath and lifted the blinds covering the window. I did not see anything. Nothing. I lifted my head even more to see where the ground was. Again, nothing. At this point, I knew my other dog would alert me about anything on the other side of the house because she is a lot more vigilant and will bark for any reason. I picked up my laptop, which was next to me, to check the time. It was 3:21. Oh great, I told myself, like a cliché horror movie. And what did I do after that? Well, I went back to sleep. The dreams I had were some of the most visual and surrealist of my entire life. But nothing good was happening. At all. The house in the dream was haunted and kept presenting situations that terrify me. Every time I tried to leave, something would pull me back in. I don't know what to make of it. The last thing I remember is a girl with a red mask approaching me. The dreams ended abruptly because there were 3 taps on the window again. I was able to awaken myself easily this time. The dog at my feet stirred a little, and again. I shifted my gaze to the floor where my cat was. My heart sank because my cat confirmed the unreliability of the dog at my feet. My cat was on the floor, but she had her head in a way that told me, yeah, she heard something. I again took a deep breath and looked outside. Nothing. At all. I opened my laptop and it showed the time was 5:18. I went outside this morning to see if there were footprints or broken plants behind my bedroom window. Nothing was out of the ordinary, so I don't really know what to make of this. I'm not even sure how I am going to be able to express this to my mom and sister. They are due back today in the evening. I've been running conclusions in my head. Is someone trying to break into my house, testing to see if anyone is home? I'm even considering the fact I auditorily hallucinated those taps, and now I'm gaining schizophrenic tendencies and paranoia. The last thing, which I really hope not, is the reason for posting this on here. Has anybody encountered these taps in their culture? I just hope they don't mean anything.
Your place was cased. They were checking to see how alert you are.
So, my grandpa told me a story. I believe him, but tell me what you guys think. I'll try to tell it from his perspective and in green. Some more details before reading. Everything takes place in Poland. Partisans were shooting Germans in the house mentioned in the story at the end of the war. The second floor was separated from the first only by stairs he got there by, so throwing the hay off there wasn't hard. I've been in there and actually some weird shit happens there once in a while. Be me. Visiting my aunt in the countryside. Just got off the bus. After a few minutes of walking, I can see the house. Quickly go over there and greet everyone. Aunt tells me there is some work they would like help with. I'm only 28, so I can do it. She says she wants me to throw some hay from the second to the first floor. Seems easy. I go up the stairs and see the hay. Being halfway through the job, I decided to take a break and drink some water. Sitting on one of the hay bales, I see something. It's a figure of the man, at least the top half, laying on another one of the bales. It seems to be wearing a white collarless shirt, grey pants, high black boots, and a cap. I was so scared I just jumped down on the bales I already took care of. It kinda hurts, but better than being up there. Ran out of the house with a scream. Told the aunt WTF just happened. They took care of the bales. I didn't want to go inside, but I finally did, because I had to sleep somewhere. They told me the history of the house during World War II. Again, what do you guys think? I kind of feel like it may be true. I even found a helmet with S runes in the barn one day. It's my first post here, on 4chan that is. It was just troubling me so much, I had to let someone know, and my friends would laugh at me.
Something very peculiar happened to me a few days ago over 2 nights. It hasn't happened since, which only makes me more confused as to what it actually was. I have some ideas of my own for possible explanations, but I suppose I'll explain first. Been living in a shared house in Shinjuku, Tokyo for the past few months with my best friend, a big bearded Viking-looking Scandinavian. We've been having a lot of fun, visiting Mogra, Akihabara, and even went to Kyoto and Osaka for a few weeks. I disliked Osaka, so I told him I'd go back to Tokyo. He still wanted to see things in Osaka, so he decided to stay for a bit. After arriving home, I was extremely tired from the 9-hour bus ride, so I went straight to bed. In the middle of the night, however, I was awoken by knocking on my door. I was very adamant that my friend and I get separate rooms, so we don't grow tired of each other during this long trip. Because of this, partially as a joke, we began knocking in tune of our national anthem on the doors. Our country is a very small, northern European country, and nobody else in the share house are from Northern Europe, so nobody would likely know it. But nevertheless, knocking began in the tune of my national anthem, which had until now meant my friend Anad and nobody else. I asked who was there. The moment I did, the knocking stopped. I was a bit too freaked out, so I decided not to open the door and check. Next morning, I checked if my friend had returned. Nope, still in Osaka. Figured I might have been half asleep, or just heard a knocking pattern that wasn't there, or something. But the next night, something even weirder happened. I'm lying down in my bed, browsing random threads, when suddenly I notice a silhouette in my window. My room has a window see-through door type of deal with a closed-off lower roof. There are stairs that lead to it, but the stairs are locked off. The window's lower halves are blurry like bathroom windows, and the upper half are clear. The silhouette was crouched in the corner of the blurry part of my window. I was obviously pretty freaked out, even more so when I realized the slide was not locked. I quietly crawled to the slide door to lock it, making sure whoever was there didn't notice me. Was it a homeless guy or some salary man who passed out drunk? I managed to reach the window without the silhouette moving at all, but being so close to it freaked me out a lot. I reassured myself whoever it was wouldn't notice me due to the darkness of my room and the blurry windows. I moved my hand to lock the slide door, and I panicked as it forced a loud clacking noise. Quickly, I looked to see if the silhouette moved. It didn't. I couldn't sleep in my room, so I went downstairs to check if anyone was around in the living room area. Noon was around. When I came back, the silhouette was gone. That was 2 days ago. Nothing has happened since. And it wasn't supernatural, but a strange occurrence that freaked me out. I felt like sharing it.
I lived in Austin, Texas. It started after I saw a few guys messing with the phone line outside my home. I then heard strange clicking noises on my phone. When I would say, "I think someone is listening to the phone call," the call would be terminated. A number of odd events then started to occur around that time. I would lock my door and go to work. When I came home, the door would be unlocked, sometimes even open. This happened 5 days in a row. I would triple check to make sure the door was locked after the first few times. Nevertheless, it would be unlocked when I got home. I lived alone. Then my remote control disappeared for about a month. It finally showed up under my mattress, when the television was not even in the bedroom. A strange man started visiting my house offering to mow the lawn. I accepted his offer. He then started asking me all sorts of weird questions. It turned out he had a room at the hotel behind my house, with a window overlooking my backyard. The hotel was way too expensive for a person who made their living mowing lawns to stay there for at least 2 months, when an apartment would have been much cheaper. The cost of the hotel a month would have been at least $1,000 and probably closer to $1,200. Then I installed some new fixtures in my apartment, which made it difficult to breathe, so I decided to spend all my time outside until I got the ventilation ducts cleaned out. One night I was outside on the phone and I saw a white Suburban with very tinted windows, too tinted according to Texas law. It pulled up into the driveway. When they saw me, they pulled out and drove down the street. The strange thing was that normally people who did this would turn around and go back to the main street. In my case, they pulled in, pulled out, and continued in the same direction. An hour later, I was still on the phone. I saw the same Suburban pull into my house. They saw me and pulled out again, just like they had done the first time. Because of the toxic fumes in my house from the new fixtures, I decided to sleep in my car that night. As I was trying to sleep in the back seat, I saw a man's shadow very close to the car and I heard him talking to someone else, but it seemed via radio because the man was not conversing with anyone and was alone. The neighbor's kids were outside and I heard him yell, "The neighbors," and he ran off. The neighbors told me there was a white Suburban with a white lady, well-dressed, driving it, and a white man was next to my car doing something. A poorly dressed, think-bum black man had also gotten out of the Suburban and was watching from the street. The neighbors' kids had pretended to call the police, which provoked them to run off. That was the third visit of the white Suburban with overly tinted windows that night. The next morning, I found soldering paste on my car. The next day, I saw the white Suburban again, and it turned around to follow me when it saw me. I decided to follow it and gave chase for about a half hour before it got away. Other things that happened were strange phone calls every night around 3 a.m. that would then hang up. Another person called me out of the blue and somehow she brought up the target of harassment. I would also wake up in the middle of the night at the same time every night for no reason. This happened for about a month. Several nights a black helicopter circled around my house and focused a spotlight on my house. They would usually circle for about an hour at a time. This happened about 3 or 4 times. I generally responded by giving them the bird. I also continuously saw vehicles parked outside my house, including a white van. The white van would stay parked for hours at a time. If I knocked on the windows, nobody would answer. I couldn't see inside the back because it had no windows except for in the rear of the van, and they were tinted. Oftentimes the van or other cars would arrive outside my house the moment I was leaving for work. Sometimes I would leave for work and then turn around because I forgot something. As soon as I arrived, I would see the white van outside my house. I lived alone. On 2 separate occasions, a different police officer showed up at my house. Each claimed that I had dialed 911 and asked to poke around the house. In both cases, I had not dialed 911. I allowed them to poke inside because I had nothing to hide, and I figured that if I didn't, they would have probable cause to suspect a crime had been committed. My mail showed up missing on several occasions, and I would have mail from neighbors. I would have neighbors from a block away bringing mail to me. I started having a rapid heartbeat and panic attacks. I also had trouble urinating. My prostate expanded and was very painful. When I saw doctors for these problems, they told me it was stress-related. I was double charged for all of these medical visits. On my phone bill, I would pay and then get recharged. This happened many times and resulted in thousands of dollars of phone bills. Even though I was a good worker, my boss demoted me and started making me work weekends. I'm not sure if that was related to the rest of the harassment. I would take my automobile to get repaired, and I would soon have the same problem. My gas tank drained inexplicably. My home computer quit working completely and I had to reinstall the operating system. At this point, I had gotten married, but my wife would be very angry with me constantly and would not listen to my stalking stories. We got divorced after a year. I got so sick of the harassment I moved to South America. Here I have been met by strange single white Americans who are traveling alone and quiz me on why I live here. These guys dress and talk like rappers, not typical travelers, and their stories about their history also have contradictions. I know they are some kind of agent. However, since moving here, the harassment has mostly ceased. The agents always carry a Walkman or CD Walkman, and when I start talking about anything of importance, they pull it out. I assume it is a recording device. The last time, I removed the batteries and interrogated the agent as to who he was, to no avail. On one occasion, my front door had the door lock unscrewed. The only thing I noticed different in my apartment was that my credit card had the signature panel on the back and the holograph on the front completely scratched off. I assume this harassment is because of my political views against the government and secret societies.
Hey/X/ I have a weird story. So first things first, I have a phobia of gray aliens. Kind of a strange phobia, but not too weird. It's how I got that phobia is a weird thing. Ever since I was little, I know it already sounds pretty dumb, I've been able to have very lucid dreams. These dreams were so real that sometimes I have difficulty figuring out what's reality and what's not. I tend to have these dreams if I'm in complete darkness, so I can prevent them if I have a nightlight on. So for the longest time, I never knew how to bypass these dreams. As a kid, this made sleeping almost scary. Most of the time my dreams were boring, but sometimes I'd have bouts of nightmares. I'd try to stay up all night long, but would ultimately pass out and go through the nightmare again. Most simply didn't make sense, given how realistic these dreams were. Something as simply as melting through the floor was horrifying. Like I said, most were weird, but the weirdest ones were the ones with the aliens. For about 2 weeks straight, I'd have nightmares of tall gray aliens phasing into my house and standing over me. Sometimes they'd just look, but other times they'd touch me or try to talk to me. These dreams scared me out of my goddamn mind. No matter how hard I'd try to stay up, I'd still end up dreaming about them. In reality, what they did to me wasn't really scary. It was the thought that some hideous, unstoppable entities were visiting every night. These nightmares took a big toll on me, so much so my mom even noticed. The last night I had dreamt of the aliens. My mom made me sleep with her in her bed. I awoke in the dream like I always did. And like for the past couple of weeks, there was a tall gray standing at the end of the bed staring at me. Except this time, other aliens didn't come phasing in through the walls. He didn't try to talk to me or touch me, he just stared. After a few minutes, he turned and left. I never had another dream of the Greys after that.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.